Getting more as a MyLowe's Pro Rewards member is easier than ever with the Lowe's app. Download it today and earn 500 points the first time you log in. Plus, your digital wallet helps you scan, save, earn, and access what you need to manage it all in one place. Download the Lowe's app and take advantage of your Pro benefits today. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid 12/1/25 through 1/7/26. Offer valid for first login per organization only. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Additional restrictions apply. Visit Lowe's.com/terms for more details. Subject to change.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tie-in time is here. That's right, we're talking about The Shining on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from the beautiful Overlook Hotel. This is Kill by Kill, where we're dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters. And today we're going to unpack all the goriest of details of Stanley Kubrick's 1980 film The Shining, in the hopes that a groundsperson's untimely end is just the beginning of the jokes we might make at their expense. And as always, there's only one person I trust to bash my brains in, the one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
Why would I want to do that? I'm settling into this nice, quiet hotel for a long winter break. I'm going to finally catch up on some writing.
Yeah, sure.
Going to read. Going to enjoy this backlog of canned beef stew.
Oh, man,
why would you think I would lash out and violently attack you?
There is an atmospheric river rolling into at the time of this recording, so it's going to be raining all weekend here in Southern California. So undoubtedly, I will be going insane because I won't be able to walk outside for maybe 2.5 days.
Godspeed.
So I don't want to scare you, Gina, but we are not alone. That's right. We have a special guest. You may know him as a writer and comedian of note from many projects, including co-authoring The Werewolf's Guide to Life, a manual for the newly bitten, and his latest project, Deathbed: Horror Stories by Comedy Writers, in which he is the editor-in-chief, which is available right now if you go to deathbed.ghost.io. The one, the only Ritch Duncan. How are you doing today, Ritch?
Patrick, thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here. And I will also point out that we just actually purchased a vanity URL. So you can go to deathbedwriting.com, which
excellent.
Means
wonderful to hear.
Although having ghost in the name of Deathbed does add very crucial branding. So we're up in the air. If you want to go the ghost route, go that route.
Sure.
But deathbedwriting.com will get you there.
Considering Gina has her own ghost.io, it's what I always go to.
Yes.
I'm just thrilled to never speak the word Substack ever again. So I'm thrilled to have you both on for this. And before we get to any of our usual preambles, I just simply want to state for the record, my central question when I put this into the schedule was, where does one even fucking start with a movie that looms as large as 1980's The Shining? What is left to be said about it? And I think this is a legitimate question, and one I didn't have a clear answer to until I was deep into the process of the preparation here, because I don't think there's been a podcast in the world, a YouTube video explainer, just your friend in high school who did not go off ad nauseum as to what The Shining really is and what it's all about and what's at the core of it and what you're not getting about it. And I don't know that we're going to get to a ton of previous existing theories, because They all exist out there, and those are to be consumed. What I did want is to kind of understand how The Shining, the movie, fits into the Shining Stephen King universe and the tempestuous relationship between those two things. But before we get to that, it is customary that I ask both Gina and Ritch, what your previous relationship was and is with The Shining. Ritch, why don't you go first?
I mean, I think obviously The Shining is such a huge motion picture. I guess if I had to sum up The Shining in 2025, I would say that it is America's hard horror film.
Sure.
Like, maybe an argument could be made for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, some of the, long franchises that you guys have covered before. But I mean, The Shining exists in a way as an effective, rough, violent, scary horror movie, and also exists as a movie that anyone who takes film seriously really needs to see and have an opinion on. I mean, I feel like one can have an opinion on Texas Chainsaw Massacre and not put yourself through it as a film fan. I don't think you have that luxury with The Shining, with Kubrick, with Jack Nicholson, the iconic performances, that it really is the film that whether you like horror movies or not, it's almost like whether you like horror movies or not in America in 2025 depends on what you think about The Shining. You can't define yourself as a horror film fan without it. I just think it looms larger, even than say Psycho. I mean, I would put it to you guys. You guys are also experts, but I mean, I cannot think of a bigger, more iconic horror film than The Shining.
I would agree with you in many respects. I think there is this interesting current that comes in the world post Psycho, where Hollywood can't quite decide what it wants horror to be, and Psycho is such a shock to the system. They're not entirely sure. We get a lot of psycho-bitty, hagsploitation films in and around Psycho that seem to be of a piece with that. So it's not entirely unique. And then The Birds kind of has a disaster movie appeal. But I think starting in 1968 with Night of the Living Dead and going into 1980 with the 1-2 punch of Friday the 13th and The Shining, that is the golden era. Past the Frankenstein's monster, Universal monster era of horror, and in particular, American horror. All of that's kind of very much sandwiched in that period. And yes, it's crazy to think of how outsized, and one would argue correctly sized, impact The Shining has on modern horror. And it's odd to think about that it did okay-ish at best. People referred to it as a flop, but ultimately it made, its money back. No one lost their shirt. But I think people did wonder, and a lot of critics at the time wondered, was any of this worth their time and attention at this moment in time? Gina, what is your relationship to The Shining?
Well, it's funny. I would tell you that I have a very strong memory of, I would have had to been about 8 years old, of watching TV with my parents, and the trailer for it came on. I believe it was the one with the blood pouring out of the elevator with
Sure.
the weird, like, kind of upward floating credits, which you never really see in trailers too often, and it really freaked me out. It was very unsettling. And by that point, I had started to develop a fascination with horror movies. I had already seen Halloween, and I had seen Salem's Lot at that point. So I was starting to become very fascinated by the concept of being scared. And I think just, that might have been my first exposure to the concept of sinister. Like, I don't know what's going on here, because obviously I had not, the book was out by then, obviously. I had not read it yet. I would not read it until I was about and when I say read, I put that in quotes because I didn't really understand a lot of it, but I just attempted to read it when I was about 10 or 11,
right,
and did not really truly understand what it was about. I just think of it as like, ooh, it's a scary, ghost story. I was like, no, it's about alcoholism and generational trauma.
Right.
And I didn't get that yet, but I understood just by the trailer, this is sinister. And I don't know what this is about, and I don't know what's happening in it, but it's bothering me, and I don't know why. And I've seen the movie several times at this point, and it does not, that aspect of it does not lessen for me.
Yes.
And I think that there are only a small handful of horror movies that have had that effect on me. And I don't mean it's like, oh, nothing scares me. That's not what I mean. I mean, it's a different feeling. It's a kind of under your skin feeling. And I would say another one for me, that would be Hereditary.
Sure.
Where, just to think about it too long kind of, gives me a little the willies. And, so that takes a special talent to do that, to be able to do that to people.
Yeah.
I think Hereditary and The Shining are fascinating movies to compare. And absolutely one of the things that I would throw in, just thinking on and piggybacking on your thoughts, Gina, there are that both of those movies are so well crafted, good movies. And I've been a horror film fan my whole life, but a lot of it came through sort of the VHS, your friend's basement. You have the defense of saying, well, this is kind of trash. And yes, it will scare you or will give you a cheap thriller or, but I feel like The Shining never gave you the out of saying, I'm watching a sleazy movie. I'm watching a trashy movie. From the beginning, it was A-list movie stars. All of the things that you mentioned that unsettle you are genuine film tricks that are done on purpose. This isn't someone tripping over a cable and then the camera shudders and 15, 20 years later, people say, oh, it gives it a verite feel. No, everything in The Shining is done on purpose. I mean, from those opening credits that drift up and, that incredible that you see drone shots all the time now. But this shot of, the most terrifying commute in film history of, this car going up to this hotel. I mean, it's you don't have the defense of saying I'm watching trash here or I'm slumming it. You never get that luxury with The Shining, and it pays off.
Intentional, I think, is a very apt word for what The Shining is, and one would perhaps paint a fair amount of Kubrick's filmography with intentional. There's a lot of thought. There's a lot of preciseness, a sense of perfection and surprise. He was trying to evoke in himself. He only knew what he wanted when he saw it. And until he saw it, he just didn't see it. And yet, I think it is a little interesting because at the time, when you read reviews, contemporaneous reviews of this, like Janet Maslin's pretty happy about it, and Gene Siskel's not so much, and a lot of people are waffling back and forth. But basically, a lot of it comes down to, why would he waste his time doing this? And the answer is, he had wanted to make a horror movie for a really long time. He had wanted to make Rosemary's Baby, but Paramount already had the rights through William Castle, and they had already been lining things up. So he was too late to that. He had a relationship with Warner's, and they brought him in early to look at The Exorcist as a project, but he didn't like work for hire gigs. He wanted to find things and have that thing speak to him. And so when this comes across his desk, I think starting in, because it's released to the public in 77, but I think he finds it in 76 as a galley. He's like, there's a lot of this you don't need, but everything I do need to make a good, scary horror film is in this. And that is when we begin the process of separating what the book is from what the movie is. And I don't think there is a greater example of two entirely different ways to tell the same story. They're both as good as each other in completely different ways.
I mean, if you want to completely disregard Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, you go ahead. But,
do not bring that up in Patrick's presence. Do not. I should have warned you. I'm sorry.
Nothing has shifted my, little, socialist mind about IP more than Pooh, Blood and Honey. Because if this is what we're going to do with intellectual property that anyone can use, if this is fine, then Disney should just be able to hold on to it. I'm sorry. If this is the sum total of what we can do with this shit is just make a terrible slasher movie, then I think Disney should just be able to hold on to shit forever. That being said, please pick up our our Steamboat Jason design in our t-shirt shop, which is now perfectly legal, everybody.
Yeah, we have a group chat where we just like to torment Patrick with the latest announcements of the new public domain horror movies.
Listen, I'd love to be proven wrong that one of these things is just a secret masterpiece. It's not impossible, but I don't think that's what anyone is attempting to do. And I think the novelty of it went away a long time ago, and it's just what people do.
I would agree with you. I just had to think of the complete opposite of two different adaptations. But I should have just let it go by saying, "Oh, bother," and then we would be good with it. But I mean, those movies are pranks and money grabs, which is
And a money grab is fine so long as you're entertaining. And none of them have risen to that level for me, and I've given up trying unless I'm told by a source that I actually trust that it is. But I will say the last two sources that I trust that told me you should watch Blood and Honey were Gina Radcliffe and Megan Sunday, and I don't know. I've made them watch shitty.
I haven't seen it, so I shouldn't judge. But
no, you can judge.
You can judge. You can judge the fuck out of it.
All right, fair enough.
They put it out into the world, and they made their money. They're fine. Coming back to The Shining, I wouldn't say happier subject, but much more interesting. I don't think our audience, or really any audience, would necessarily gain much from a deep dive into the differences between the book and the movie, since, again, hours of content are available for you in any number of formats to tell you what those are. But where I do think some daylight can be found and explored between the two is both the approach and purpose of King's novel in comparison to Kubrick's finished project. The Shining would be King's third novel, but he wanted to set it outside Maine so that he didn't box himself into, quote, the New England horror guy, which he didn't consider a bad thing, but his publishers thought maybe one for outside of Maine. So by all accounts, King closed his eyes, pointed at a map of the U.S., and hit Colorado, and takes his young family on a trip to Colorado just to see what he can see, what is found there that could make a horror novel out of. And the plot took shape from two sources. One was a variation of the Ray Bradbury short story, The Veldt, about someone's dreams becoming reality, which finds its way into a lot of King's work, in particular it, and then obviously later on, much more so in A Nightmare on Elm Street. But he had originally attempted to do something that had some of these elements in it in an abandoned novel called Darkshine. But King started that in 1972 and he couldn't quite crack it. So he put it in a drawer and went on to other things. The second was when he went with his family to visit the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. By coincidence, they were the final guests of the season, and King, his wife, and children were particularly haunted by the emptiness of the property that they were visiting. They ate alone in a giant ballroom with an ancient sounding recording of a big band playing on a loop in the background. And the staff could only offer them one menu item for dinner because they had cleared out the freezer of fresh food the night before. So, to quote King, he says, except for our table, all the chairs were up on other tables. So the music is echoing down the hall. And I mean, it was like God had put me there to hear that and see those things. And by the time I went to bed that night, I had the whole book in my mind, which is just one of those wonderfully infuriating things that Stephen King can say that I wholeheartedly believe when it comes to him.
So do we know, was they on this family trip, was a toddler Joe Hill along for this? Do we know that?
I believe a toddler Joe Hill, which is the middle child, was there, and so was the older daughter. And what I think is the most compelling component of the book version is that even though King, has tons of writers that appear in his work, I don't know that he's had any more character that's been more pinpointedly autobiographical than Jack Torrance was at that time. This is a direct quote from King. Sometimes you confess. You always hide what you're confessing to. And that's one of the reasons why you make up the story. And when I wrote The Shining, for instance, the protagonist of that book is a man who has broken his son's arm, who has a history of child beating, who has beaten himself. And as a young father with 2 children, I was horrified by the occasional feelings of real antagonism towards my children. Won't you ever stop? Won't you ever go to bed? And the time has, those experiences gave me the idea that there are probably many young fathers and mothers, both of whom are feeling very angry and who harbor angry feelings towards their children. And I've said this before, but very quickly, when Ollie was in that first 12-week period after he was born, he was so fucking angry that he had left the womb. And almost nothing mollified him, and it can drive you temporarily insane. And I remember we had a house that was in the hills above Highland Park in LA. It was a very steep drop outside of our house, particularly the room where I would change his diaper and eventually become his room. And this was a day in which he had not stopped screaming. And I can't give you an hour because I'm not sure there was an hour he wasn't screaming that particular day. I just changed his diaper. This has not changed his attitude in any way, shape, or form. And I looked out that window, and the very uninvited thought traipsed across my mind that if I just leapt out the window with him, Becky could pick up the pieces in her absence and just be free. She would be able to start over and everything would be fine. Now, this is a terrible, funny thought, but it is terrible. And I joke about it a lot, but I'm also very guilty and ashamed of this thought that just leapt into my mind. But it's also very reasonable when you're in the thick of that very manic, emotionally fraught, your nerves are on edge moment in time. And I understand the idea that you might not ever get past that that this person that you invited into your family, you view as continually an outsider who's just destroying it. And while those thoughts, thankfully, don't pass the trance of my mind anymore, I'm disturbed by it. And I think it was after just experiencing that for the first time that I read The Shining and truly got it.
Yeah. And then you also add in alcohol to that, which is like, that doesn't help. It doesn't help.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the real terror of The Shining that, you see when you're an adult, is that it's a scary drunk. It's a werewolf movie. It's a drunk dad movie. It's not a ghost story, or at least the terror of it. I mean, the ghosts really seem to only manifest themselves to Wendy once the hotel has its power back, but I mean, it's on the early days where the thing that really is terrifying to me about The Shining that starts out are those moments where, I mean, Wendy comes in and is having a conversation with him and is being nice, and you just see his casual disdain for everything that comes out of her mouth and the cruelty that comes out of nowhere is, you know, and you talk a lot about Jack Nicholson's over the top performance in that movie. But what really it is, you know, you can build tension and build tension and build tension all you want as a filmmaker. But I mean, Jack Nicholson had that ability to be terrifying while being quiet. And so the over the top stuff really was sort of, you know, the execution on top of what was already that was where he had to go with it. And it's, but I mean, you know, to me, just there's, I think it's like he has some casual profanity towards her that's so mean, you know. I mean,
he like tells her something like, "Why don't you go fuck off?" Or something.
Why don't you get the fuck out of here? And you're like,
that's your wife, dude.
Yeah. And yeah, there's another one where she brings him breakfast and everything's wonderful, and she's like, "Oh well, writing is probably you have to get into the regular habit of writing every day." And it's like, yeah, she's right. That's how it works. You have to get into and the look he gives her of this, like, you idiot, you stupid bitch, you don't understand. And it's like, already anybody who's ever been in an abusive relationship or had a domineering father or that attitude of that sort of narcissist that just kind of says, oh, well, whatever you say is you don't know, you know, that is terrifying.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Is it just me, or has watching TV gotten way too complicated? There's a million different services and just too many bills to keep track of. Thankfully, there's Philo, a better way to TV. For as low as $33 a month, I get the channels I love. MTV, BET, Food Network, you name it. Plus, everything that AMC Plus has to offer. And guess what? They've added access to HBO Max Basic with Ads Plan and Discovery Plus, so I can enjoy all the best TV with one subscription. There are no contracts, no surprise fees, just one low price. And their DVR is awesome too. I can save everything I love on Philo for up to a year and skip the ads when I rewatch them. A total game changer. I signed up directly at Philo.tv. That's PHILO.tv, so I could lock in the best price around. Philo's the easiest decision I've ever made. Now the hard one is trying to decide what to binge next.
Well, yeah, and the creepiest parts for me are when he is, or rather the you know, whatever has a hold of him is trying to make him act normal. And like at one point he's talking to Danny and like trying to be reassuring, but he's kind of leering at him. And it's like, it's very, it's very unnerving. Or later when he pretends to act concerned, and it's almost comical. He's got this like very exaggerated frown and like this furrowed brow. And it's like, you can tell neither of them are buying this. It's like, you know, this is like you're wearing a mask or something.
And I think because of that, what the adaptation is, like we said this many, many times, you adapt one piece of media into another and you leave behind what doesn't work for it. And there's a lot in that book that just simply is not going to fit into a motion picture. And certainly not if you want it to be as effective as The Shining ultimately is. It doesn't make it unnecessary or extra. It works within the book. It's simply, you can't carry that over into a movie. And because this book is a lot of this very personal confession on King's behalf from both an anger standpoint and then substance addiction, that you look at Jack's background and he's a school teacher who, he's kicked out of the profession for striking a student. He's near broke and forced to take a job that ends up putting him and his wife and child in mortal danger. And that's before ghosts show up into it. Like, just being there is not a guarantee you're going to get out of it. And I think because when King had published 2 novels under his own name at this point, but he'd also had this steady stream of short stories that he was able to publish in magazines and adult publications. He's like, is this real? Is this something that's actually going to carry over? Because at the point he's writing this is just before De Palma's version of Carrie is released in 1976. That kind of cements King's professional writer of note mantra to the world after Carrie's release, and performances are nominated for Oscars, and it's such a success along those lines. But he's wondering, am I going to have to constantly put myself in danger in order to tap into the art that I've told everyone, and now I've really leaned into the direction of, like, I am going to be a professional writer. But in order to do that, he's got to drink himself silly all the way through the process. And so he weaves that into this book, and Kubrick sees that and goes, I don't know that I need all of this, and just takes what he needs from the book to make this very effective movie. But as other people have said, the movie's cold and the book is warm, and there's no good or bad there. They are simply entirely different presentations of the same story. But I just don't think King can ever look at it and not see what the movie lacks to him.
Well, you know what? Because whenever you're talking about comparing the movie and the book here, I think a huge part of that is the fact that Stephen King hated the movie. You hear that all the time. And to me, that was, now that I was preparing for this podcast and talking to my wife, who's a huge Stephen King fan of the books, I realized that the reason I had not read The Shining was because Stephen King said the movie The Shining was bad and his book was better. And when you look at The Shining, which for years stood up as pretty much the best, one of the top 3 best horror movies of all time, if not the best horror movie of all time. And to hear someone say, well, that movie isn't good, it's hard for me to take that man's opinion seriously. You know what I mean? Like, I have to go, well, what was a good movie then? Cujo? Like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like,
yes, I agree with you, but I think as alluded here, I just don't think he can view it as that, because
you make a great
so
case.
much of himself into the mold of what makes that book that he cannot see it for what it is, and he just took offense at a certain point, and he was surrounded by people very early on who also didn't think the movie was very good. His opinion was not uncommon at the film's release, and it's only been over time that his opinions have shifted more to the rare percentage versus the masses.
And even he, I think, has grudgingly softened on it a little bit.
Yes, I think when you know that your personal brand is no longer going to be defined by Kubrick's movie.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, and generally people at this point have, treat them as 2 separate properties now.
Yes. I think that is a benefit of the endless discussion of,
like, you can watch the movie without reading the book and vice versa, and still get 2 complete experiences. I don't want to call them entertainment because that's a weird word for it, but they both tell their own story in their own way.
Yeah.
Do you get the sense that the reason that The Shining extended into other Stephen King books, and Halloran makes an appearance in it, and do you get the sense that that's King trying to throw off the mantle of of Kubrick?
I mean, I wouldn't say that's entirely devoid of it, but he has always toyed with a universe as something that is interconnected, even if loosely. He, in some of his books, other books have taken place in some of his books. I think in The Institute, which is the most recent that I finally finished. But in that, one of the characters makes a reference to seeing twins and thinking of an old horror movie that he had watched over his parents' shoulders. So like the Shining movie exists in the Institute, but the book doesn't, even though that book is full of kids who have the shine. So it's one of those things where he's always folded these stories into one another to a certain degree. Sometimes they've been tight and there's a real lineage to it. They're along the same beam of the tower. And other times they're complete reflections and refractions of one another. And I think that is also anathema of anything that Kubrick ever did. He thought of each of these things as individual projects that had their own voice, their own engine. And when he was done with them, he would go back and just tool with them a little bit, just to experiment, just to pop the hood. And he was notorious for it. This movie alone photographed for 11 fucking months. Just keep that in mind. This is a one set wonder in the grand scheme of things, with very few outside locations, but the vast majority of time was in a London studio inside of a gigantic soundstage and just making this film and slowly but surely driving his cast insane.
Now, do you think of this as an American movie or a British movie?
I think the vast majority of people who are involved in its creation are American. Certainly, there are touches of its Britishness and being filmed there simply because you have those craft people. But I still think Alien is very much an American movie that was made in London by a British person. Whereas Kubrick liked the structure of it, just knew he could ask for something exacting and always get it, and that people were down to clown for the way he wanted to make a movie. And he just did not care for the American process after a certain point. And I could go into depth on the history of Kubrick, but needless to say, I think he's a man who has enjoyed, being in charge a whole lot. His movies obviously draw inspiration from a variety of literary sources over the years, but they ultimately emerged as Stanley Kubrick films once his film hit theaters. And that's one of the reasons that I think King really bristled at The Shining. He had a negative reaction to it. It didn't evoke what he had poured into the book. But how is anything you're going to do outlive and outshine a Stanley Kubrick film?
Right.
And the good news for King is he kept putting out interesting and valuable work, and the world came around to what he had to offer, as opposed to what the co-screenwriter has to describe of this novel, which is, this is a piece of trash.
Well, it's interesting too, because when I was in college, I did a thesis on Edgar Allan Poe. And one thing that I found that's interesting about Poe is when he was actually writing at a lot of that time, he was called trash, and that oftentimes when you have a genre writer, it just takes a little bit of time for people to come around to see that value. Yeah. And, when you look at Stephen King, when The Shining came out, when the movie came out, and, I mentioned it as a plus earlier that, Kubrick is this renowned award-winning auteur, but I felt like when I was a kid reading Stephen King books, it was frowned upon, like these were the books that you didn't tell your parents that you read. And it really is only, I feel like, in the past 20 years that people have kind of looked back at King's legacy. I think a huge part of his image rehabilitation has to do with his book on writing, which I think people learn how to write by reading that book now. I mean, there is real wisdom and real knowledge in it, and it takes a little while for something that shocks and scares you, to not be Gene Siskel about it.
Yeah. And, Gene Siskel, boy, was really Gene Siskel about it.
He didn't like feeling bad. Yeah. He didn't like losing control in that way, but not
good
to make
old Gene Ernest Siskel.
Well, but now that we're talking all about Kubrick and Stephen King and Edgar Allan Poe, we're going back in time. What I would like to do, I think, when you talk about The Shining in 2025, is one thing I noticed when I was watching it again with my daughter, who I lived through the pandemic with, is this is very clearly a pre-COVID horror movie.
Right.
They say, the guy he interviews with, I guess Stuart Ullman, he says the thing that can get really trying here during the winter is the tremendous sense of isolation. 5 whole months. And we're like, 5 months?
Right.
Are you kidding me? That's JV shit right there. Get out of here with your.
I don't even have a giant hotel we can run around.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I would take every single one of those ghosts. The ghost blowjob guy, the weird, aren't you having a good party? Just to have a door that I could even slam. I don't care if there's a rotting old naked woman in the bathtub. I'd be happy to have a door. Do you understand what I'm saying? So yeah, it's a pre-COVID thing. It's a paradise.
It's interesting. While we're just touching on its critical reception and Gene Mountbatten Siskel, my favorite quote from his review is, "The Shining is more boring and on a couple occasions downright embarrassing than anything else."
Oof.
Like,
wow.
Gene. Janet Maslin, who I always like because she has such a problem with horror herself, but was such a massive Kubrick stan. She's a little bit in the middle on it. And what she comes down to, she likes the movie, but she doesn't like that it's a horror movie. Mm-hmm. And the quote I had from her, which I think our audience in particular will find enjoyable, is, "Scaring the viewer is easy. A hack job like Friday the 13th is probably scarier than The Shining, and just as irrational, by the by." Are we coming to The Shining for rationality? Is that something I want out of this entertainment? That sounds crazy to me. But review after review after review would pick apart elements of The Shining as it's like, this doesn't make sense.
This isn't realistic.
This isn't realistic. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's a haunted hotel movie.
But I mean, I understand the need or the desire to look at something and say, well, what are the rules? And I think it's a testament to the skill of the filmmaker and the performances of the actors that we aren't clear necessarily on the rules. I mean, I had people arguing, just watching it a couple of days ago, is it a breakdown? Are there really ghosts? And of course you kind of have to say, well, somebody let them out of the freezer, but you need,
right. Yes, there are ghosts.
Yeah.
Yes, there are ghosts.
You have to again, you have to treat it as its own separate entity removed from the book. And I mean, in the book, I'd say there's both. There's ghosts and there's Jack haunted by generational trauma. That's how they get to him, because that's his vulnerability.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, of course there's ghosts.
Right. You're seeing the movie through the eyes of 3 unreliable narrators and ghosts.
Right.
You have
the fact that those ghosts are feeding on their emotions. They are provoking them in order to push them to extremes, because the more extremely emotional they get, the more vulnerable they are to being consumed by the hotel itself. And the giveaway for that is the conversation that the Torrance family has on the way up to moving into the Overlook, which Wendy goes, isn't this where the Donner Party happened? And Jack's like, that was actually farther west. And, Danny asks, well, what was the Donner Party? And Jack has to explain, well, they were pioneers in covered wagon times. And when, they got caught in a mountain range in the middle of winter, they couldn't find their way out. And in order to survive, they had to eat each other. They resorted to cannibalism. And then he reinforces it with to survive. Yeah. And for the Overlook to survive, it has to consume. And it nibbles on people during the season. But when it can really sink its teeth into people is when it really feeds. And we get to witness that in this movie. According to the movie that is presented, there are fucking ghosts. So anyone who tells you otherwise, I just feel like I think you're working overtime to justify an interesting idea.
Well,
I feel like that if it doesn't occur to you that a hotel is probably loaded with ghosts, you might not be the right audience for a horror movie anyway. You might be a little too rational to enjoy a horror movie.
I mean, this is the Room 237 thing where the film is created with so much craft and so many holes and potentially. That it is very easy to project. I don't think it's a huge leap to say, this is someone who's been driven mad by isolation and is seeing ghosts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yes, yes, there are ghosts within the sake of this thing. But I mean, the fact that the film does keep it. I mean, and also the presence that Jack Nicholson's character has. It's so rough and it's so violent. And he was so rough and so violent and so mean before any of the ghosts show up that it's not a huge leap that he'd act that way.
Right. Yes. I think, and that's one of the things that has often rankled King in particular about Torrance, because obviously he views himself through that construct. But Jack Nicholson is never going to be the common man. And he certainly wasn't the common man in 1980. He was a movie star. Yeah. And a movie only has so much real estate. He can only progress from a certain place to a certain place. And the concept is that here's a person who is already very broken before being put into this stressful situation. And it doesn't take much to push him over the edge. So yes, he starts a little crazy and is very, very crazy by the end. But as crazy as he gets, he can't open a locked door from inside.
Absolutely one of the worst slasher killers in the history of the genre. I mean, just an absolute goofball. I mean, he manages to take out Scatman Crothers by literally hiding, but he has to crouch and hide, and that's his. He can't. The amount. Honestly, watching Jack Torrance stumble around the Overlook Hotel, limping around the Overlook Hotel with the axe, while as a 5-year-old boy and his wife easily elude him.
That part in the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror where he's going up the stairs and the lightning strikes and he scares himself and falls down the stairs by looking at his own reflection. That's not far from Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, no. It reminded me of me playing the Friday the 13th video game and being so terrible at it, where literally I would walk out as Jason. I finally got to play Jason, and you walk out and all of the campers just run away, and I have no ability. I did not there was no safer camp than the Camp Crystal Lake when I'm playing as Jason in the Friday the 13th video game.
Yeah, I had a hard time. Well, I'm not a video game guy, but I came back for that one. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is something I leave in the past. Maybe this is something. It's just I've reached an age where I don't need to be a part of this. I can hear about it from other people, and that's fine.
Right. Don't make me make Jason Voorhees a bad killer. Like, don't put that on me. You know what I mean? Like, Jason Voorhees, if I'm playing a Jason Voorhees video game, I want to be able to kill some teenagers. If I can't do that, it's a bad game. Anyway, I'm saying Jack Torrance, not a good
He's not good at it. This is not a premier example of someone who really knows what they're doing. He gets outfoxed by a kindergartner. And
his kindergarten tries some like Looney Tunes, like, let me make a few footprints going this way, and then I'm going to go that way.
Right, the Bugs Bunny footprints in the hands with the snow. Yeah,
he might as well just painted a picture of a tunnel on a wall.
I mean, again, the clues are in this because he is watching a Roadrunner cartoon at one point in the movie.
Yes,
and he has to outrun his pursuer. He's being the one window they have to the regular world is the television, and the television keeps telling them ways they're going to outlive the circumstance. And one is, you're going to be in a cartoon. You're going to basically create your own tunnel, and and the coyote is going to go through it, and you're going to go the other way. And it fucking works. That's what it comes down to. It fucking works. Jack Torrance sucks at killing people. He also sucks at writing. He's a bad husband. I don't think he's good as a snacker. When he's in the walk-in fridge and you see what he's been eating, it's dry peanuts, Oreos, and peanut butter. Two of those are the same fucking thing, you weirdo. Even the guy in Friday the 13th Part 3 mixed dry peanuts with a shelf-stable orange drink. Like,
now
at least that
we're
was
talking.
A variety.
Now we're getting going. Yes.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Is it just me, or has watching TV gotten way too complicated? There's a million different services and just too many bills to keep track of. Thankfully, there's Philo, a better way to TV. For as low as $33 a month, I get the channels I love. MTV, BET, Food Network, you name it. Plus, everything that AMC Plus has to offer. And guess what? They've added access to HBO Max Basic with Ads Plan and Discovery Plus, so I can enjoy all the best TV with one subscription. There are no contracts, no surprise fees, just one low price. And their DVR is awesome too. I can save everything I love on Philo for up to a year and skip the ads when I rewatch them. A total game changer. I signed up directly at philo.tv. That's philo.tv, so I could lock in the best price around. Philo's the easiest decision I've ever made. Now the hard one is trying to decide what to binge next.
Clorox Toilet Wand, it's all in one. Clorox Toilet Wand, it's all in one.
Hey, what does all in one mean?
The caddy, the wand, the preloaded pad. There's a cleaner in there, inside the pad.
So Clorox Toilet Wand is all I need to clean a toilet?
You don't need a bottle of solution to get into this toilet revolution. Clorox, clean feels good.
Use as directed.
Not to keep dwelling on the Simpsons take on it, but if I could ever afford a single cell from the Simpsons, it's when Moe and all the ghouls are dragging him out of the out of the walk-in freezer.
I mean, again, this is what I kind of wanted. I think where The Shining is a very unique circumstance, because certainly there's been lots of references to Halloween or Friday the 13th or Freddy Krueger in media. But The Shining is one of those things that's so unique, so unto itself, that it just is a reliable touchstone to evoke a specific emotion within viewers. So as we've mentioned several times, you got the Shannon Treehouse of Horror segment. In The Office, Dwight pulls his hair back and does a Nicholson imitation and does all work and no play makes Michael a dull boy. There's a segment in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in which Sweet D is invited to play Forever and Ever by a hallucination. There's a blood elevator thing in an episode of Teen Titans. There was the infamous Bing.com commercial that attempts to recreate the writing room of the Overlook. And do yourself a favor, people. Look this commercial up. It played during the Super Bowl. And I think it might have been a Super Bowl that we had something in for Fox, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't know if it was this one or the Mountain Dew Zero commercial with Bryan Cranston and Tracy Ellis Ross. Two people I enjoy an immense amount. But I hope those checks cleared, because that is also very personally embarrassing to, like, how do we sell the experience of drinking Mountain Dew Zero? I know The Shining.
And you've got little stuff like just this year in Weapons.
Sure.
You have the when Josh Brolin has the dream with the giant gun in the sky that has 217 on it.
Exactly. It's just one of those things that always pops up. I mean, like a movie we've covered, Gina, is Student Bodies. And there's a here's breather in that. The one I always reference because I worked at Universal and I had to work the Twister ride there. In Florida, the Shining is playing on the drive-in screen during one of the Twister sequences.
Yeah.
Right, and that scene where he puts his face up to the door, right? That's that's actually why they can't remake The Shining, because in the reboot he puts his face up to the door and he goes, "It's Jimmy Fallon."
It doesn't quite have the same ring.
He breaks through the door and he touzles Wendy's hair like a good Jimmy Fallon Trump hair touzle. You know, it's not.
He swings. It leads to terrible things. Stop laughing.
Right, he normalizes Wendy. He doesn't, which is even more chilling in 2025.
The 2013 of Carrie, when they're killing the pigs, one of the toughs says, "Don't worry, little piggy, Uncle Jack is going to bash your head right in." In Finding Nemo, the shark says, "Here's Brucey," when he sticks his face into a crack of that sunken ship. The Grady twins are skeletons in a painting and a blink and you miss it segment of Coco. And of course, the Shining carpet reference has been used so many times. And, we just re-released our episode covering The Substance, since it's now on HBO Max. And that has tons of Shining references, including the carpet. It's just one of those things that's so unique, so visually rich and dynamic that you can just point to it. And I probably knew more Shining references before I saw the movie than what I've ever seen after.
Yeah, I consider it one of those movies where even if you haven't seen it, you've sort of seen it.
Yeah.
Like Psycho, to lean back on that. You may not have like sat down and watched all 2 hours and 20 minutes of it, but you get the gist. You get the general idea what happens in it. You get the references.
I had that experience watching Gone with the Wind when I finally watched Gone with the Wind. There's about 7 scenes in it where you're like, oh, when two people are in love and they run at each other across a wheat field, that's from that. Like there's tons of that's from that's. In The Shining. I mean,
it just lives on in so many other different packages. You're just never sure whatever came first until you actually see it. It's like one of the reasons why I wanted, when my kid decided, I'm going to watch Stranger Things. I'm like, great. Before we watch season 4, you're actually watching A Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm not having you watch a version of Nightmare on Elm Street and then watch the Craven original. I kind of have to have you understand the references before you get into that.
That's a good instinct.
It is, but but also when you guys are talking about like how much you know about it before you even see it, I had entirely ingested the Mad Magazine parody of The Shining, probably in 1980. That was a contemporaneous read for me. So there was no part of The Shining that was a surprise. because it had spoiled the fuck out of that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And the vast majority of horror movies that I hold dear in my heart were probably spoiled by Mad Magazine. Certainly Alien was. Aside from the fact that they didn't know the shape of what the xenomorph was, every other part of it is very spoiled.
Well, that was the only opportunity that we had back then to revisit these films. I mean, just pre-VHS. I mean, that was the revelation, was the VHS, when you could actually rewatch a movie a million times. And I would not be surprised at all if one of the reasons that The Shining is so embedded in our pop culture is it's the biggest horror movie in 1980, and everybody has a VHS player in 1985. And that's the movie that everybody's saying, oh my God, you got to see this thing. And not only see it, but see it over and over and over again.
Technically, Friday the 13th was the biggest horror movie of 1980. Well, it was number 5 at the box office. This was number 10. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be that weird nerd simply because we started as a Friday the 13th podcast.
Oh, I agree with you. And I love Friday the 13th. I'm just saying I would put the Shining and the Friday the 13th films in that same level of, you look at that VHS box when you're a kid and it is a thing that you have to experience, and not only experiencing it over and over again. I mean, I have very vivid memories of watching a film like that at night with friends, and you would wake up the next morning if you had a sleepover and be like, well, let's watch the movie again.
Right. Yeah.
That would be a thing we would do. It's just such the idea. And also when you take into account the fact that at that time period, all the television and all the radio we had was so deeply censored that the idea of having something like that in your home was, of course you were going to watch it again, because what else are you going to do? Watch Gilligan's Island and Scooby-Doo once The Shining and Friday the 13th have entered the picture?
Yeah. I mean, I was definitely too scared to watch this at any point before I started working in video stores. I think this is one of the only other movies outside of perhaps Texas Chainsaw that I initially watched from a room outside of where it was playing. I had to watch it with some sort of doorway in between. I couldn't directly view it. It was how imbued with everyone's feelings about how it was the scariest thing that had ever been recorded on celluloid I was by it. But, I do think it just weirdly holds up. It's over 2 hours, but it does kind of just breeze by. There's no real lulls for it. And it just operates at its own pace. And if you're on that wavelength, it just fucking plays.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, a lot of modern horror audiences tend to complain about, this would be now described as a slow burn horror movie, in that, it takes a little while for anything to really happen. But, if you're, I don't really have much time for people who complain that, when they say nothing happens, they mean like, well, nobody gets killed.
Yeah.
There's no violence. And it's like, there's this thing called atmosphere,
right.
And foreboding, and, any horror movie that's worth, your time is going to take a little bit of, time kind of playing with you a little bit, and just sort of, making you understand that things aren't right here, rather than, you first 5 minutes, there's an axe in someone's forehead.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, there are some movies that do, that do just take off running and don't stop. And, and those are fine. But, for like a ghost movie, for instance, there's, that's part of the fun of it, that the creepy part is, that it takes a while for anybody to understand what's going on, that something is wrong.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And you have to show how broken the world is in order to understand when it really cracks in half.
Yeah, if you can watch the first 10, 15 minutes of The Shining and not think anything is amiss, congratulations on your amazing parents. Because those are a marathon of red flags flying up Each one of them, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like, just the body language is just like, okay, there's something wrong here.
Just the length of Shelley Duvall's cigarette ash is such a huge red flag.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another component here. That's a vast difference between the King novel and the Kubrick film, because in the book, Wendy can be a capable and effortlessly attractive woman who, you know, married this guy out of high school and everything seemed to be going their way until she realizes, oh, whoops, he has a terrible anger management problem.
He's got a little temper.
He's got a temper and he drinks and he's unfulfilled and he's starting to blame me for it. And it is a bigger violation of how they are lulled into the situation and how isolated she is. I don't think the movie can afford that because there's just not enough time. So here she has to be a raw nerve who can barely deal with her child's emerging telepathy, nevertheless wrangle her dry drunk, perpetually angry husband whose fuse is constantly relit no matter how many times she hides the matches. And it has to be said, because at the time, Shelley Duvall's performance was not viewed as an incredible achievement. And I
think you can make a case that she's the best goddamn actor in that movie.
I wholeheartedly agree. To be able to hold on to the threadbare string of sanity she has at a certain point. And be able
not only her sanity, but her whole family. She is desperately holding her family together.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can see like the scene with her where Danny is brushing his teeth and has the first glimpse of the overlook when they're about to go, and she's talking to the counselor, and you absolutely, as a parent, you can feel that where you know what it's like to see the judgmental eyes of a teacher or a counselor that goes, are you fucking up here?
Yeah.
Is this your fault? And like, there are some dead silences that, you know, and they actually lay out that scene perfectly of the, you know, does he tug him too hard? Like, is he beating him up, or is that, you know, like that whole thing of he spilled the papers and he was drinking too much and he pulled him by the arm and he, you know, like it doesn't feel like she's covering up for him. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like she's conveying what she thinks is true. And he has
dedicated himself for 5 months to, like, hey, this was a terrible thing that's happened. I feel bad about it. And I'm going to commit to a very specific change in my life in order to never have that repeat again. And she's kind of like, well, I want to believe in that. And
right.
You can, but it's a lot harder to do that when you've isolated yourself in an abandoned hotel in the middle of a perpetual snowstorm.
It's not a great next step. Yeah.
But like, Duvall was nominated for a Golden Raspberry at the time.
No, really, and she's amazing.
Oh, they you know, I mean, not that the Golden Raspberry should be
thought of as
give any sort of weight, but they also nominated, if not awarded, Heather Donahue from the Blair Witch Project. So they apparently have a thing for, you know, thinking that women falling apart is bad acting.
As opposed to committed performances, which this absolutely is. And when you see in the documentary that they, released with the Shining on, starting with DVD and now Blu-ray and 4K, of how Kubrick, in his heart of hearts, just believes the only way to get this professional actress to perform this way is to be Jack Torrance.
Yeah.
And that's the way he kind of comes off, because he doesn't act that way towards the kid and he doesn't act that way towards Nicholson. He only acts that way towards Duvall. And it drove her to the brink, both physically and emotionally. This is from a 2001 interview. She said, I wouldn't trade the experience for anything. Why? Because of Stanley. And it was fascinating to It was a fascinating learning experience. It was such intense work that I think it just makes you smarter from that moment on. But I wouldn't want to go through it again.
Well, it's so 70s misogynist. It's like the scene that sums up like the treatment of Shelley Duvall is the scene where she's trying to escape through the window, right?
Yeah.
Because even though we all know what Shelley Duvall looked like in that movie, she still can't fit through the window, which means there are literally people in Hollywood saying, you see, I told you she could be skinnier. If only she could have lost a few pounds, why, she would have been okay.
If we can just get her down by 10, 15, she'll finally be olive oil. And
you see? Yeah. It's just appalling.
This made people uncomfortable. It made them feel some kind of way. And they had to explain that. And there was no way that some of these people could attribute it to what the movie was. They had to think, this is too over the top. It's not right. It's not emotional like the book. And those things can be true. Like, it's certainly not emotional like the book, but why anyone would view it as a Shelley Duvall problem, and yet they did.
Well, Shelley Duvall is the one who made them feel bad. I mean, like, if you think it's going to be a ghost story movie, and what you're really seeing is an abused spouse movie, and it triggers you for a whole bunch of abused spouse, bad dad things, and maybe that doesn't come together, and you're like, well, I was supposed to see this ghost movie, and now I feel like absolute shit.
Yes.
I am uncertain that a movie could be about two different things at the same time.
Well, I mean, that's and that's what a good horror movie should do, is take the real fear, and then maybe that's one of the things that makes The Shining so brilliant, is that the line between the actual fear that it is a metaphor for and the thing itself is a hair's breadth apart.
Yeah.
Are you basically trying to say that The Shining is the first quote unquote elevated horror movie?
I mean, yeah.
It is kind of. I was thinking to myself, I was like, if this came out now under A24, it would do great.
I mean, I would even say that there is no A24 without The Shining. Yeah.
Oh no, absolutely not.
I think the ceiling would be the same one that it had. It would make 49 million. And 49 million is a whole lot more in 1980. But I do feel like you'd have people who wouldn't be able to wrap their heads around it, or just would find a way to discount it. And oh my God, the way people find a way to discount movies that I don't doubt people's genuine emotional reactions to film. What I doubt is when people decide to make their little corner industry about something. And like, I think there's a little Osgood Perkins, I hate this guy moment happening right now. He's coming out with too many movies. And so something has to be wrong with him. Something has to be wrong with his everything that he's put out. And I just, for some reason, I just don't fucking buy it. My personal feelings about his film aside, I just don't buy it. Going back to Duvall, though, I just want to say, because we brought up the concept of basically we're disquieting people by this ghost movie is also a movie about an abused woman. Two things. One from Bill Jabari in Vulture, and I love reading Bilge's stuff. And he wrote, looking into Duvall's huge eyes from the front row of the theater, I found myself riveted by a very poignant form of fear. Not the fear of an actor out of her element, or the more mundane fear of a victim being chased around by an axe-wielding maniac. Rather, it was something far more disquieting and familiar. The fear of a wife who's experienced her husband at his worst and is terrified that she will be forced to experience it again. I know, Gina, you and I are both reading Scream With Me by Eleanor Johnson, right, which examines the parallel paths of American feminism and horror. And the final chapter identifies The Shining as a premier example of what she calls domestic horror. And to quote Johnson, domestic horror is a subgenre defined not by supernatural monsters alone, but by the gut level fear of what happens inside a home. That it does protect you from the outside, but it also isolates you and you're vulnerable there. And I think The Shining is one of the greatest examples of that type of domestic horror fear.
Yeah, I mean, if they were even to escape with and Jack survives, like, how do you go on from that? Yeah. Like, how do you even like recover from that? Hence
why originally we had scheduled Dr. Sleep to come after this. I just didn't think I could emotionally handle it.
Yeah, I believe the word. I believe the phrase we use in our chat about it is that's a lot of movie.
It's a lot of movie and a lot of movie back to back. And so as much as I would love to have that emotional through line, because you're absolutely right, Gina. How do you recover from any of the events of this? And luckily, we got two really good examples of how you do that. And one in which I think repairs King's relationship with the Kubrick movie through the adaptation of Dr. Sleep. But we'll get to that at a later date.
Since I might not be here at the later date, I will tell you, I watched Dr. Sleep just preparing for this podcast, thinking to myself, I don't know if I want to, like, I've seen The Shining so many times. Do I need to watch it again? And I'd been on the fence on Dr. Sleep thinking like, not to take the extreme of, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, but it felt to me potentially exploitative. You know what I mean? Like, this is going to be, here's another IP thing that's just doing, and obviously it's from King and there's people had said that it was good, but I just sort of thought, do I need another chapter on the end of, it's like people telling me that like Psycho Part 2 is good. And it's like, sure, maybe it is, but I'm good with, you know what I mean? Like
I can't recommend Psycho 2 enough. It's so fucking rules.
All right. Oh yeah, that's a lot.
All right, well, with you guys, all right, I'm on board. I'm going to watch
High
Psycho
endorsement.
2. But the point is that actually I think I did see Psycho 2 years ago. I will watch it again, I promise. But the thing with Dr. Sleep, that when I actually sat down and watched it, and I had my wife watch it with me, who's obviously a big fan of the book and the film of The Shining, and we were both kind of skeptical, And what Dr. Sleep did really, really well is, when you're sitting around and you watch like a horror TV show. Like I actually tried to, I ended up giving up on I don't want to go off on too much stuff, but the Welcome to Derry, the new It thing on HBO, I started it and I was like, I can't believe it felt to me like, why are we watching, a common frustration that I have is, why am I watching 17 hours of television that could be a movie? And Dr. Sleep is the movie that, instead of it being a 15-hour TV show, it gets everything that you need to do in that TV show, all of the nostalgia, but the good characters, and it's well acted, and it knocks it out in a little over 2 hours. And it was tremendously satisfying. And I felt like, God, I'm so glad I didn't have to watch 22 hours of television to get that experience.
True. I don't know how. And I
only took 22 hours to make my point.
No, I welcome it. I don't know how Derry is going to shake out. What I find interesting about it as a concept, and I don't know if this will actually play out in practice, but we have always viewed interactions with Pennywise through successful battling back of Pennywise. And what I think is an interesting concept is to watch both the town and Pennywise just take a fucking buzzsaw to the joint, where what I enjoy about it so far is that it doesn't ever discount Pennywise's presence as, well, he has to gain strength in order to do this, which I think is one of the defining faults of chapter 2. And here he's just allowed to be a fucking maniac. And you're like, oh, here's a character. Oh, they're dead. Well, here's this next character. I can't wait to, oh, fuck, they're dead. And I think that's what Derry is like every 27 years, is a bunch of people get in line of the buzzsaw and it just saws through. And I also don't think that's everyone's cup of tea. But it might be one brewed specifically for my dumb tastes.
All I can tell you is the second I watched the first one, and then the kid gut vanished, and I thought, wait a minute, are we really taking a Stephen King property and ripping off Stranger Things, which is a property that ripped off Stephen King to begin with? You have the Stephen King IP. You do not need to go rip off Stranger Things, whose reason to be was to rip off Stephen King.
It's a little bit of a meta or
there's a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy is I'm predisposed to push back against IP, but I hit play on it like everybody else, so I'm just as guilty as anyone. That's why it is.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Is it just me, or has watching TV gotten way too complicated? There's a million different services and just too many bills to keep track of. Thankfully, there's Philo, a better way to TV. For as low as $33 a month, I get the channels I love. MTV, BET, Food Network, you name it. Plus, everything that AMC Plus has to offer. And guess what? They've added access to HBO Max Basic with Ads Plan and Discovery Plus, so I can enjoy all the best TV with one subscription. There are no contracts, no surprise fees, just one low price. And their DVR is awesome too. I can save everything I love on Philo for up to a year and skip the ads when I rewatch them. A total game changer. I signed up directly at philo.tv. That's philo.tv, so I could lock in the best price around. Philo's the easiest decision I've ever made. Now the hard one is trying to decide what to binge next.
Clorox Toilet Wand, it's all in one. Clorox Toilet Wand, it's all in one.
Hey, what does all in one mean?
The caddy, the wand, the preloaded pad. There's a cleaner in there, inside the pad.
So Clorox Toilet Wand is all I need to clean a toilet?
You don't need a bottle of solution to get into this toilet revolution. Clorox, clean feels good.
Use as directed.
I do think it is interesting, just as a side note here, that much of the criticism at the time about The Shining upon its release was in a full-throated defense of King's novel, which had been out for 3 years. It had been very, very successful. So a lot of the people who are reviewing and ingesting the film have engaged with the novel version of The Shining. And because the movie simply doesn't have the real estate, you're just not going to spend as much time with these characters in the same way. That said, Kubrick wasn't the only person who didn't care for the novel that much, because co-screenwriter and novelist in her own right, Diane Johnson, said this at the film's French premiere. This is at a red fucking carpet.
Oh boy.
Among us, the Shining novel is not part of great literature. It is scary, it is effective, and it works without further ado. But it is precisely interesting to see how a very bad book can also be very effective. It's quite pretentious, but it's also true that one has fewer scruples when destroying it. One is aware that a great work of art is not being destroyed. That's part of the attitude here.
That is a lot of farting.
Well, yeah, that's.
She is a novelist herself. That's the weird thing. Like when Kubrick is deciding, how am I going to do a horror movie? Because I want to cause that kind of reaction in an audience. Like he goes to Rosemary's Baby, which he can't get his hands on. He's approached about The Exorcist, but he's like, I don't like for hire gigs. And at that time, he reads Diane Johnson's 1974 stalker thriller, The Shadow Knows, and just can't figure out a way to make the first person narrative of the book work as a movie, but really likes that book and is like instantly thinking, bring on Johnson to help him translate this material, much as Joseph Stefano, helped Hitchcock translate Psycho from novel to movie. But I feel like Hitchcock and Stefano have better reverence for the Robert Bloch version of Psycho than anyone on the production side did of the novel. They just here's a string of events, and I'm going to make it into this very effective and scary movie. And I just feel like the attitudes are so opposed to one another that how could King ever have enjoyed this experience at the end of the day?
Wow. Yeah. That quote is loaded with so much snobbery. I mean, it almost makes me feel like, is this just a writer who has a knee jerk reaction to something that's popular? I mean, Stephen, that book was a big hit. I mean, is it possible that in her mind, when that thing came out, she's looking at anything that's like this is just like a Grisham novel to her,
I do feel like anyone who's that totemic within a genre, and it's not like King invented the genre of the horror novel.
Sure.
But one would say he absolutely defined it in the sense of his era, especially his early run, of what a horror novel needed to be at that moment in time. As much as he's riffing on Bradbury and Heinlein and all of these interesting authors that he definitely soaked into his being, but also he kind of creates his own genre. It's a Stephen King book, and that can't be said about every author. They don't become their own subgenre, and he did. And yeah, I think it makes people bristle, but I also think what she's doing is telling a tale out of school. She had that conversation how many times with Stanley Kubrick and his producing party?
Right.
We gotta break this down. And it's okay because this is just kind of a dumb book that's super popular. But at its core, if we just shave off all this unnecessary stuff, we will create a very effective horror picture. And the fucking thing is, they're right.
They're absolutely right, which is maddening and amazing. It's, I mean, all of I feel like, the excesses of the auteur theory, which I feel like has been broken, as we move into an era in the 21st century where we're realizing that one person doesn't make a film. That they, if the auteur theory has any credence, it's almost with like the Cronenberg model of he's this guy. Yes, he's the director at the top and he has this singular vision, but he is hiring the same people over and over again. And it's this team that are making these singular visions. And it's, I have a very vivid memory of looking back, particularly at that documentary you mentioned about The Shining, and really thinking, oh, well, that's how you do it, is you have one guy that has this vision and will not take no for an answer and knows what's right. And he's going to keep going until he gets it right. And then when you actually do that and you don't get interfered with by the suits, you get this great picture, but when you look back at the films of, the late 70s and early 80s, the ones that aren't The Shining, or I was going to say The Shining examples of great film. But I mean, there are a lot of films that are real ponderous, real feely, real talky, real, so it's almost like, the same way, When Harry Met Sally is a great movie, but what it wrought was horrible. What did The Shining do for the auteur family? Yeah.
Any shining example, as you put it, does cast a long shadow after the fact. And so you're both battling the expectations, but also attempting to fill that slot. And that is true of every historical epic after Gone with the Wind. And, to a certain degree, in your Cronenberg example, I think the same is true with Kubrick in many respects. They're all taking marching orders, but he's not dictating exactly the concept of the Shining bathroom. We have production designers and set designers and people who are constructing that, who are making it into a reality, who translate those ideas. And then he looks at them and says, this is the way I can make the most out of this product that we all worked on. I think his most exacting thing is the number of takes that he would put actors through. Hence, Sandman Carruthers, who apparently, Gina, had who was it, Deadly Eyes, where he just has it's been a good run rat death. At the end of the sequence with him and Danny, he had done in excess of 120 takes, and he just crumpled on the floor. It's like, what the fuck do you want me to do? And that's a lot, because I don't think Kubrick knew the answer either at the end of the day. He knew what he wanted until everyone got into a place where they started doing it. And then he wanted to be surprised. Mm-hmm. And that is a odd thing. And I think a lot of directors deal with it differently. But yes, Kubrick is one of those filmmakers who, like King, becomes a genre unto himself, because you can't really connect the linear dots between this and many of his other films, other than the fact that he adapted them into what they became. But he still needed those raw materials. It's not all coming from his mind. His mind had to be activated by something. And, Hollywood always learns the wrong lesson. So for a while, people learned the wrong lesson until Michael Cimino had way too much cocaine. And they're like, I don't know, Back to the Future? And that worked.
That's a great movie.
It is. Any last thoughts? I mean, listen, we could talk for hours, days. We could call this volume 1 and come back and revisit this every year and have a completely different discussion about it.
I got a whole podcast about how the HR department at the Overlook Hotel is terrible.
Right. How did he walk? How did the people in Denver look at Jack Torrance and go, perfect?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like in the not to say, but in the book, in the book, his friend got him the job, and he went into it already feeling insecure about it because he knew that Ullman tells him, I didn't want to give you this job. I don't think you're qualified for it, but I will, because your friend said you're up to the challenge. And so, right then and there, the wheels are in motion. He's already going into this feeling insecure and resentful. Here it's just like, I applied for this job, and you're the best one. You're the best applicant.
Yes.
And our people in Denver. Yeah, our people in Denver recommended Jack very highly, and for once, I agree with him. And you can just sense the Fred Willard coming through that guy's soul. It's like, and for once, I agree with him. Like, who did they send before? Delbert Grady? Was that? There was the one guy who cut up his family like cordwood, and we had our differences. But you know what? Anyway.
Well, sometimes
you can't argue with the cook. That guy, rock solid.
Rock solid. The other thing about Sandman Carruthers is some of the reviews I read had quibbles with the fact that he could sense the danger happening from Florida, but couldn't sense the danger of Jack sneaking up behind him and sinking an axe into his chest. And but that's not the way The Shining works. That's not how The Shine fucking operates.
It was because Danny was sending him, was trying to, for lack of a better phrase, trying to connect with him.
Yeah, I got the sense. Yeah,
he was sending him a message.
Yeah, Danny. I felt the reason he got killed is he was looking or trying to communicate with Danny.
Yes,
and Danny was shut down from stress and wasn't broadcasting or receiving.
Yes, absolutely. It's just,
then that was the one kill in the movie that we'll talk about on the Kill by Kill.
Kind of, in a way. I mean, we've seen the end results of a lot of things. Speaking of which,
that's true.
It's time to choose your own death venture, and that's where we decide of the deaths in the movie. You're forced to die in one of those ways. Which one would you choose and why? So we see a lot of end results, so I'm going to include them. Otherwise, we'd be left with one. So you can slit your wrist in the bathtub,
Can I slit my wrist with the giant can of fruit salad? Is that a possibility? I'm terrified every time she opens that thing.
Hacked to death with an axe. You could be decapitated with an axe. You could be shot in the head. You can take an axe to the midsection. You could be part of the corpse chorus that Wendy finds. I'd forgotten, Gina, that this movie has a fucking corpse chorus.
It does have a corpse chorus, yes.
And
I just saw this 2 days ago. What's the corpse chorus?
The corpse chorus we find in a lot of horror movies, and we started it in and around Friday the 13th. It's where near the finale, our final girl happens upon where our killer has gathered all of his previous kills in one location.
Oh, yeah.
And so while this is a minor corpse chorus.
Like a Greek chorus. Okay. Yes. I thought they were singing. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And it's not about song necessarily as the gathering, and we like alliteration.
Yes.
And then you can be frozen to death in a maze. And that's what we have to choose from. And of course, Ritch, you're our guest, so that means you get to go first.
Okay. I mean, there aren't a lot of good ones, right? I mean,
no.
Who gets decapitated?
Grady is decapitated at the end of the day.
Who decapitates Grady?
I know. I think he just has like a head wound. I don't think he.
Is that the guy who's like, what a great party? That's not Grady, is it?
Yeah, no, it is.
That's Grady holding up the glass. See, look at this. I've seen the movie 1,000 times. I'm still learning things.
According,
I think he just mentions that
it's a head wound,
like falls down a flight of
stairs,
but
he's bleeding from the skull at one point. So we'll take it hatchet to the head.
I'm going to say I'm going to go out Scatman Crothers style. I'm going to go out. I feel like he's making a move. He came all the way back to the Overlook Hotel through. So the way that he died is scary and awful and rough, but he was being a genuine hero, and he was trying to save the kid's life, and continue to teach him about this shining thing. I feel like, and I feel like anytime you can live your life like Halloran, Scatman Crothers, and The Shining, you're doing okay. So I'm picking.
And you've got some cool ass naked lady.
Oh man, the best in a film of incredible interior design. That's the best interior design. Without
he might not have situational awareness, but he does know art.
He certainly does.
For the record, Mrs. Grady is who's decapitated by the axe.
Okay, gotcha.
And Dilbert shoots himself in the head.
Oh right, yeah, shotgun. I stand by my axe in the chest.
It makes sense. Gina, what say you?
Yeah, I'm going to be axed up like one of those little Grady twins, because I just like the idea of like just freaking people out as a ghost. Just, like somebody just turns a corner in a hallway and I'm just standing there like just glowering at them.
Gina, I'll be your twin. I mean, we are very different heights. So there's that.
That's true, but just just standing there holding hands, just like again, just Kubrick staring at people.
I think I see some new kill by kill key art of you two made up. We'll do it.
Would like to make representations of Gina and I in matching blue dresses, holding hands.
I don't hate it.
Please contact us through killbykillpod@gmail.com. Yes. I think that's perfect. So I'm going to get hacked to death with an axe right along with you, Gina, so we can haunt the hallways. I certainly don't want to be naked in a tub for the rest of eternity. Thank you very much.
By the way, it's worth mentioning that the naked in the tub lady, that ghost, incredible prank. Very funny. Hugely funny.
She looks so delighted with just
when she's hanging out with the other ghosts in the party later, she's like, no, I was a super hot girl naked. Then get this, I hugged him and he was into it. No, wait. He looked in the mirror. And then I switched.
And that's when he started to get scared.
Right. And it was the butt that was the problem.
He was scared by butts.
Yeah.
before we go, Ritch, why don't you tell the people in the audience where they can hear, read, and see more from you?
Well, the thing I'm working on now the most is it's called Deathbed Horror Stories by Comedy Writers. And it's an idea I had, 4 or 5 months ago. And I just started kicking it around with our mutual friend and acquaintance, Kevin Marr, who does Kevin Geeks Out. Mm-hmm. And you're really going to have a hard time finding a better collaborator than that guy. And we looped in Dan McCoy, who does the Flophouse podcast. And
sure.
I worked with years ago. I used to be the editor-in-chief of a humor magazine called Jest Magazine. This was in the early 2000s. And we did, I thought the early 2000s was a great time to get into print.
Sure.
So,
yeah, it's really going places.
Yeah. So, but I had always loved the idea of doing a print publication and building a community of people and having. It's always easier for me to promote myself when I'm promoting the we as opposed to the I.
Sure.
And so, just getting together with Kevin and Dan, and I've always thought and believed that there is this huge connection between comedy writing and horror writing. And obviously with the success of, the Zach Gregors, and the Jordan Peels of the world, where people are coming out of sketch comedy, and really creating great horror. I just felt to myself like this is an opportunity and potentially a press angle of saying, look, these are funny people. And also, candidly, where we're at in the industry, comedy jobs are going away. Yeah. So I'm really doing my best to create an intentional space where comedy writers can build out their toolboxes. So we got together and we're doing these short, 4,000 word tops, and we have a new story every single Monday. And Gina has one coming out on November 24th called The Telltale Honk, which is we had to bump it down a little bit because I was like, we already have a murderous clown.
Not
so
like
if we can, it is different. I won't offer spoilers, but it's coming on November 24th. And we've just been able to do, I've published 2 stories. Dan's published 2 stories. Kevin's second story is going to come out the first weekend or the second weekend of December. And it's just been really one of these things where we started doing this thing and the whole goal has just been building out a library. And we've had wonderful stories from Scott Jacobson, who's a writer from Bob's Burgers, wrote a story for us. We have one from Bob Powers up now. He was my co-author on The Werewolf's Guide to Life and just an incredibly funny comic writer. And so we have these stories. Some of them are hard horror. Some of them are a little on the funnier side. And we actually have on every story, we have something we call the clownometer. So each story is given a rating from a Bozo the Clown-esque, fun and cute for Halloween and kind of funny, to a Pennywise-esque, dear God, does the depravity never stop? So each story is rated on that scale because some of them are fun and whimsical, and some of them are gross and upsetting. And we feel like comedy writers, with their ability to build comic tension, is very similar to the way you build tension in horror. And they have all end up on a release that is based on timing, whether it's a scream and a scare or whether it's a laugh. So it's playing with that timing, and I'm really encouraging comedy writers to experiment and stretch out with it. And it's been a really, really fun process, and it's just been awesome. So we now have something like 9 stories. We started in September, and we've been putting out a story every single week since then. And the goal is just to build out a library. So check it out. It's at deathbedwriting.com. And you can click subscribe and have it sent to your inbox every single Monday morning. So
it's excellent
check it
stuff.
out.
I'm really excited for it. Anything that extends the Flophouse universe, because Gina and I are from the Flophouse universe. The fact that we met in the Flophouse Facebook group.
Oh, love it.
So that's lovely. And as I've said many times, like horror and comedy are mirrored of one another because their goals are basically creating involuntary reactions. And it's just one side makes you laugh and the other side makes you scared.
And hopefully exercising some of the taboos that cause them, finding a way to talk about the things that we don't talk about.
Absolutely. Gina, where can people find you on these here internets?
I write about pop culture and current events on my newsletter, GinaWatchesThings.ghost.io. And I am on most social medias under Gina Does Things.
Don't worry, folks. You can find us on Patreon for bonus episodes. You could subscribe to us on YouTube. You don't have to listen there, but you could subscribe there. You could talk back to us there or on Spotify. Rate and review us on iTunes or the podcatcher of your choice to help us be seen and heard by more people. Visit our t-shirt shop for lots of things like our Choose Your Own Death Venture shirt, or hopefully down the line, Gina and I dressed as the Grady twins. Hopefully before Christmas we'll have skeleton hugs up. But don't worry, folks. The body count will continue for myself and for Gina and Rich. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
They're all gonna laugh at you.
Clorox toilet wand, it's all in one. Clorox toilet wand, it's all in one.
Hey, what does all in one mean?
The caddy, the wand, the preloaded pad. There's a cleaner in there, inside the pad.
So Clorox toilet wand is all I need to clean a toilet?
You don't need a bottle of solution to get into this toilet revolution. Clorox, clean feels good.
Use as directed.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.